The Super Bowl is next Sunday, but let's take a break from the Sabres and talk some Bills and NFL with Chris Trapasso, our friend for many years. Chris joins us on the Wester hotline at Chris Trapasso. Right, Chris? I mean, you're in the area. I don't know if you're feeling the Sabre feels, but...
I was going to say that right away.
Let's go.
Like, what world are we living in? And is it true, my dad told me this last night, that if they win tomorrow, that they are going to tie like a streak of going 20-3 over a stretch that the 05-06 Sabres had? Is that true?
They had... I have to check. They had a couple of winning streaks that year, one middle and then one later.
Yeah.
That this has got to be up there with. They're 19-3-1 in their last 23. And
unbelievable.
My favorite thing about that is the first game when we started to hear that maybe they would be moving on from Kevin Adams. They're up 3-0 in Edmonton. I was guaranteed win night. They had lost badly in Calgary the night before. They were on it was desperate times. Whatever. My prediction's meaningless. They're up 3-0 after 2. Edmonton scores immediately in the third, then in the middle, then with 2 seconds left in the third period, McDavid, both the end point goals, and the Sabres win the game in overtime. Like, okay, well, good. I mean, it still could have been a game where fans were upset because they had that third period. But, I mean, then they didn't lose for a long time after that. I don't know. Your dad's into this, though.
Oh, he's into this, and I probably have said this before, but as just a rehashing, I'm a huge Sabres fan. I've been watching the Sabres since Alex Mogilny, Dominic Hasek days, been to tons of games in my life, so it's been fun to bring back looking forward to Sabres games being on TV again into my life.
Yeah,
like, that's been fun.
I have not been out for a game since the Columbus game that ended the 10-game win streak. But I hang out at the Moore Room on Hurdle, and I can tell you, like, it was a 3 o'clock in the afternoon game. I got there at 2 and got a seat at the bar. And it's one of those deals where I didn't really look behind me for an hour or so, and it was like brick bar by the time the game started. And it wasn't just people that were out shopping or something. It was they were coming because there was a Sabre game at 3 o'clock. And, of course, all the bar people are like, this is starting to be like 05-06. Like, it's starting to happen. The fuse is getting lit. And I haven't gotten out for another one yet, but I can't wait because the Sabres scored to tie that game 1-1 early, and it was like a Bills game was on. And I've not experienced that with a Sabres game in 15 years.
Am I going to need like Cinemax or whatever channel it is to get all the games? Because one of these games is going to come along and I'm not going to have it.
Right.
And then I might have to go to the
You're going to have to go out.
Moore Room. Right. All right, Chris. Well, to the Bills, another sad exit in the middle of the AFC playoffs. Would love your perspective on how it ended, the move on Sean McDermott, and then Joe Brady. I know that's a lot to talk about in one question, but sort of catching up with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and I can be quick because I know that you guys have been talking about this all week. Obviously, quickly on the game, I looked today that it was only the 8th time in NFL playoff history that a team had 5 turnovers and scored 30 points. So. Like that, in and of itself, I think you can look at it a bunch of different ways. Like, man, the offense was actually probably good enough, and they just played a uncharacteristically sloppy game. I still think Brandon Cooks caught the pass. I don't know if I'll ever be able to be convinced otherwise. I'm not surprised that Sean McDermott was let go. Did I know that it was going to be him? No, but it did feel like something big needed to change. And I went back to old texts that I was sending with all my friends before the season that I was like, I think they probably need to get at least to another AFC title game for something not to happen. So that's ultimately what went down. I was of the belief, or I wanted the team to go in a completely different direction. But now that Joe Brady is the head coach, I understand that there's a difference between me wanting it from my couch and Terry Pagula and Brandon Beane going, look, that is a little riskier to reset with someone that has no prior contact with the organization or, did not have his hand in any of the acquisition of any of these players when you have Josh Allen at his age. If Josh Allen was 24, if this was the day after 13 seconds, I think there would have been more of a real justification to say, just get someone fresh in here. So I do think that Joe Brady, who did get a bunch of other head coach interviews, was not just a internal hire who wasn't qualified and was not getting any other looks anywhere. And because of Josh Allen's age and he's entering the second half of his career, I do think that it makes sense from that perspective.
You know, I was thinking about this on the way in today, and then I heard our buddy Eric Wood on with Chris and Steve on One Bills Live say exactly this. That Brady's resume, like the performance of the offense with him as the coordinator, if we weren't living with him every day and everyone wasn't so mad about the tunnel screens and all the stuff, and we found out like we got sent his this guy's a hot candidate. Look at what his offenses have done. Look where they rated in EPA and everything. I think he'd be as hot a young candidate as Grant Udinski and Clint Kubiak. But he's here.
That's a fantastic point.
He's
That's
here.
A really good point.
Yeah, I feel like I'm parroting Eric, but I honest to God was thinking about it as Eric said. I was like, damn it. And look, I'm not fully on board because I do feel like internal, like you make a good point that blowing it up entirely maybe would have been more challenging, but I'm just afraid that they settled for someone who might not challenge them. And I think Bean maybe needs some challenging on the roster, which is maybe what undid McDermott, in the end. But
sure.
Just the point is, like, any offensive, and I'm like this all the time about football, Chris. I think no matter who, people hated Daboll when he was the Bills' offensive coordinator. Some, like we always got like, oh, this play, that play, I can tell what's coming. Like it's the easy button criticism in the NFL, maybe the easiest of the easy button criticisms. So there is, like Brady has presided over a very potent offense, even without great skill players other than Allen and James Cook. I think that's objectively honest. Doesn't mean I love the hire, but there is a familiarity that breeds a certain level of criticism and skepticism, I think.
For sure. And what I think to your last point there, I think, and to your first point as well, what makes a lot of sense is I think if he was an outside hire and was doing everything he's done in Buffalo for a different team, we would very easily be able to point to, man, this was a great coaching job because look at that receiver group. It was so bad. And over the last 2 years, the Bills, when you're excluding garbage time situations, did have the number one EPA per play offense in football the last 2 seasons when he was a full-time offensive coordinator. And we know, like, even last year with, like, Mac Hollins and mid-season about to retire Amari Cooper, they were really good on offense. And then this past season dealt with more injuries. The receiver group, I think, got worse, and it didn't really fall off in terms of points per drive, points per game, all of that. To me, secondly, and we can get into like draft stuff if you guys wanted to as well. Kind of the segue to
if
that.
You insist.
Is that what's fascinating about this being an internal hire, but it's obviously someone new, is that whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, general philosophy on game days, we will very easily be able to discern what was going on in the past. Were the Bills just completely wrong and Sean McDermott was this amazing coach who was holding everything together and was maximizing the roster and the quarterback and the defense, and some of the players that Brandon Beane drafted? Or we will be able to see very clearly, oh, they actually really wanted to do this, and they never were really doing it under Sean McDermott, or they kind of gravitated, or they gravitated toward bigger contested catch wide receivers after Brian Daboll under Sean McDermott. And now that he's gone, now they're going back to the Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and John Brown type, or they're using more passing on first down, and they're not running it quite as much, or they're using running back screens. There's a lot of things that I think we'll be able to discern from the player acquisition standpoints during the draft and free agency, and in 6 months, starting in September in the new stadium, that how much did Sean McDermott have his finger on more than maybe just being the CEO of a head coach and maybe calling the plays on the defensive side in the second half.
That'll be one where, those of us who are so inclined will maybe really want to parse the words, the wording, and the tone. That's the most interesting thing to me, Chris, about tomorrow with Brady is how far or how long of a distance does he sound like he's willing to go from McDermott? Brady, for me, as a soundbite, and he both sides every question. Yeah, sure, the quarterback is this, but the players are this, but it's got to be me, but it's got to be the protection, but it's got to be the like he'll sort of give you every answer to any question. Maybe he'll be different now, but is he going to come out tomorrow with this is what I wanted to do that I was not allowed to do? Because that's the sound of the GM and the owner after last week is we want to be something else than what we were with Sean McDermott. And I wonder, here's Brady getting this opportunity. He's probably going to capitulate a little bit to his former boss who helped give him the job as coordinator. So I don't know. We'll eventually get to not only the draft, but what can the Bills do this offseason to change who they are and how much do they want to do? Because when one of the first thoughts I had when the Brady news came down yesterday was, okay, it's still a James Cook offense.
Well, yeah, because and to speak to the on-field stuff and Joe Brady's mannerisms, all we've seen from him is when he took over in Week 11 of 2023, and then last season, and then especially this season, it was a run-heavy offense, one of the run-heaviest offenses in the NFL. They weren't throwing the ball nearly anywhere close to as frequently on first downs as they did during the Ken Dorsey era, and certainly a stark contrast from the Brian Daboll era. And like you mentioned, Joe Brady kind of was like a mini Sean McDermott, that he did not say much. It was all coach speak. You weren't really getting much from him. So he does have that opportunity that you referenced to either say, hey, Sean McDermott gave me this job, and I'm not saying that I think he should or will say anything bad, but maybe he does have the opportunity to show more of his personality or say, look, I'm not going to focus on the pass, but yeah, we're going to lean into Josh Allen, and we understand that the receivers have to do better for Josh Allen. Like we just never really saw any of that from him really saying anything that raised an eyebrow whatsoever. And yes, on the field, it did lead to James Cook leading the league in rushing. But what's so interesting about that is that after years of Josh Allen's doing too much, this season, I think a lot of fans and a lot of media members were like, he needs to do more, and this offense needs to be more of a threat through the air. So we obviously remember Joe Brady at LSU and what he had there and how that was one of the past happiest offenses in college football history that really wanted to spread it out. And it was really that embodiment of the Sean Payton Saints offense in college with some amazing skill position players and an amazing quarterback. Let's see how much Joe Brady can get back to that, or if he does at all.
Right. That lands us at my biggest concern about the hire is that ownership and the general manager, the football department, might expect him to just keep scoring 29 points a game with Everybody Eats. And I basically want to have a bonfire with all the Everybody Eats gear. If there's shirts and hats and posters, light it up. Because I don't think it's sustainable. I think they had the turnover luck 2 years ago that good fortune of they took the ball away like crazy, but really didn't give it away, and that changed this year. And the offense slowed down some, right? They didn't set a franchise record or anything. I just don't think the receiver group should be status quo by any means. I mean, the fact that Brandon Cooks and Mecole Hardman were the targets on the final two passes of the season should tell you a lot about their receiving core.
100%. And I think it's to the point where it's not even really debatable. It's kind of like Bill Belichick not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no, maybe you can run it back with. This is a team that probably needs, I would say, you can make an argument for 3 new big investments at wide receiver, whether that's in a trade and then a first-round pick and a third-round pick, or a free agent signing and then a mid-level free agent signing and a first-rounder. I think this is a wide receiver room that, outside of Khalil Shakir, needs to be totally revamped. Now, I know with contract stuff, Josh Palmer's probably going to still be on the roster, but other than that, I think it is blatantly obvious, and I would assume that regardless of any coaching corner that he's kind of been put into or now he believes in, if he loves the run game, Joe Brady would have to say, look, priority number one, I know we need to be better on defense in the playoffs, but priority number one is getting me as now the head coach and the play caller with Josh Allen in the new stadium. The wide receiver group needs to be drastically better.
About 4 minutes left with Chris Trapasso. Can Keon Coleman, who was not your favorite idea or ours, Bulldogs eventually, I mean, he liked him in the beginning, but then we talked to you every week and didn't like him as much, right? That's your story on Coleman?
I think I was off of Coleman before we started talking to Chris.
Okay.
But
it wasn't quite Chris Trapasso season yet before you were done?
Right.
Can he be salvaged?
I don't think so. And I understand, like, he's young, and this is whenever I'm saying this, and I feel like I said it 2 years ago, I'm not like trying to defame him with, his personality or anything like that. It's just I'm only looking at it from an evaluation standpoint. I don't even know about like the ins and outs of what happened off the field and not showing up to meetings or being late. But the fact that Sean McDermott, who never would really say anything bad about his players, like a few times made mention of like the immaturity, and we got to write that. Brandon Beane said it. Former players or current players, Deion Dawkins, Tyrell Shaver spoke to it and like said he's immature and he needs to be better and he knows that. That's in and of itself. So if that's something that you want to hang your head on, then sure, and say, look, that's why I don't think Keon Coleman can ultimately be the guy. But he's the exact same player he was at Florida State, who could not really get open and was always advertised as this tremendous rebounder. And Mike Evans, he was not really that guy in his final season at Florida State. The year before at Michigan State was pretty good in that regard. Not amazing, but pretty good. The final year at Florida State, there were a few highlight reel catches, but when you watch the entire film, you're like, oh, that was a contested catch that fell incomplete. And that was a drop that should have been a catch against a smaller cornerback. I think at this point, what we've seen, if we're going to go off what these guys in charge have done in the past and not really knowing as much, we do know that Brandon Beane likes to make those trades of shipping off lower rostered players for day 3 picks. He's done it in the past, and the Bills are still getting a day 3 pick for that Kyer Elam trade. I think it would make the most sense for right now, and that means over the next 3 months, trade Keon Coleman, give him a change of scenery, get a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder back, and just move on, and maybe use one of those picks on a late-round flyer at wide receiver.
Okay, well, as it is that we have
Sorry
you.
to be a downer, but that's just really how I think about it.
No, I mean, don't apologize. We've been that a lot of times over the years ourselves. As we have you, Chris, so you got a name? I got a pen and a notebook.
Yeah,
It's January 28th.
We got a few receivers that Senior Bowl practices are going on.
Senior Bowl.
Right.
Let's go.
Okay, so write down Kevin Coleman Jr. from
Kevin
Missouri.
Coleman?
Another Coleman?
Kevin, K.E.
Hang
Coleman?
up on this guy!
I had to segue right from Coleman to Coleman. Kevin Coleman Jr. Is totally different from Keon Coleman. He's one that's smaller. I'm not going to say he's John Brown, but he's like that type. He's lightweight. He's really smooth as an athlete, can get open. So that's, again, where we will see if they start to draft these smaller, shiftier receivers, then maybe there was something to Sean McDermott not wanting those types, or maybe just Brandon Beane changing to a new, like evolving as a GM, or Joe Brady wanting these guys. Kevin Coleman, he's at the Senior Bowl. He's one that I really like. I just watched Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State, who is pretty short. He has, ironically, a pretty similar body type to Tyreek Hill, and he is ridiculously fast. And for some reason, at 5'9" and like 175, Mississippi State used him on the outside, and he just got open time and time and time again in the film that I watched. So those two would be different from the archetypes that the Bills have leaned into the last 3 or 4 years at wide receiver. And the last name I'll say, who's at the Senior Bowl.
Wait, can I guess?
Ted Hurst.
Malil Shakir?
No, there's no one that has that close of a name besides
we got Kevin Coleman. Okay.
Kevin Coleman. No relation to Keon Coleman, by the way. Ted Hurst from Georgia State. He's bigger, 6'3", 207, and he's at Georgia State, so there will be some level of acclimating to better competition in the NFL. But apparently the first 2 practices in Mobile, he's not been like deer in headlights facing better competition. He's fast. He can certainly win vertically. The contested catches are there. He plays to that 6'3" size. And like that word that we use so much over the last couple of years, he can separate. He's a good athlete with suddenness to his game. So those 3 are the ones that I've kind of zeroed in on outside of the obvious first rounders.
I think you can get value out of a player named Ted Hurst.
I agreed. Yeah. It sounds like a fast impact.
An accountant, somebody that does your taxes.
How many at this point do you have a general idea, ballpark? How many first round receivers do you think there will be?
I think 3, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate are locks. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State is a lock. The one that I think is going to be a big name for the Bills in round 1 is Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, who is lightning fast and is a separator. He's very similar to JSN, in my opinion. Those 3, and then let's just throw in 2 more because the Combine will happen, or maybe even this week at the Senior Bowl. The Combine will happen, and someone will run 4.38 and have a 40-inch vertical and get that first-round buzz. So I think between 4 to 5 wide receivers. It's not quite as strong at the top. There is no premier 2 or 3 guys. There's not Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. that we're going to be talking about in the top 10. But like as what is normally the case when you don't have those premier talents, picks 15 through 45, I think we could see 6 or 7 go.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but someone that I follow, that I've been following for a long time. Sorry, Chris, don't mean to cheat on you. Said like putting together the first buzz at a top 50, they had 11 receivers in their top 50.
That was me. That was my rankings.
Yeah. So,
you follow me, right?
Maybe that's heavy. I mean, because that's a lot of second round guys, obviously.
Yeah, that seems like from what I've watched, and I'm looking at my sheet right here. I've actually watched 20 wide receivers so far because I know that I'm going to be talking a lot about wide receivers for the Bills and just become a very premium position. It's like looking back and comparing grades to last year. I don't have anyone like near that would have been like the first or second receiver off the board last year. So like for me right now, early on, Mekhi Lemon is my top receiver. Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana is my number 2. Those would have been like 3 or 4 for me last year, but there's a bunch more that are inside the top 10 that would have been inside the top 10 last year that go out to like my 13th or 14th wide receiver this year.
Thank you, Chris. Look forward to talking to you throughout the spring if you want.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to.
Great.
I really looked forward to it the last couple of years, so I would love to come back on and talk draft.
All right.
Glad to hear that.
We will set that up when it's the appropriate time, buddy. Thanks.